do all you ought to do. But I know you will," said she, bending down to kiss Elizabeth, and then, before she had done so, raising her head abruptly. "You are good and dear girls. God keep you so." By a strong effort at self command, she went onwards at an even pace, neither rushing nor pausing to sob and think. The very regularity of motion calmed her. The front and back doors of the house were on two sides, at right angles with each other. They all shrank a little from the idea of going in at the front door, now that the strange gentlemen were about, and accordingly they went through the quiet farmyard right into the bright ruddy kitchen, where the servants were dashing about with the dinner things. It was a contrast in more than colour to the lonely dusky field, which even the little girls perceived, and the noise, the warmth, the very bustle of the servants were a positive relief to Ruth, and for the time lifted off the heavy press of pent-up passion. A silent house, with moonlit rooms, or with a faint gloom brooding over the apartments, would have been more to be dreaded. Then she must have given way and cried out. As it was, she went up the old awkward back stairs, and into the room they were to sit in. There was no candle. Mary volunteered to go down for one, and when she returned, she was full of the wonders of preparation in the drawing room, and ready and eager to dress, so as to take her place there before the gentlemen had finished dinner. But she was struck by the strange paleness of Ruth's face, now that the light fell upon it. "Stay up here, dear Mrs Denbigh. We'll tell papa you are tired and gone to bed." Another time Ruth would have dreaded Mr Bradshaw's displeasure, for it was an understood thing that no one was to be ill or tired in his household without leave asked, and cause given and assigned. But she never thought of that now. Her great desire was to hold quiet till she was alone. Quietness it was not, it was rigidity. But she succeeded in being rigid in look and movement, and went through her duties to Elizabeth, who preferred remaining with her upstairs, with wooden precision. But her heart felt at times like ice, at times like burning fire, always a heavy, heavy weight within her. At last Elizabeth went to bed. Still Ruth dared not think. Mary would come upstairs soon, and with a strange, sick, shrinking yearning, Ruth awaited her, and the crumbs of intelligence she might drop out about him. Ruth's sense of hearing was quickened to miserable intensity as she stood before the chimney piece, grasping it tight with both hands, gazing into the dying fire, but seeing not the dead grey embers, or the little sparks of vivid light that ran hither and thither among the wood ashes, but an old farmhouse, and climbing, winding road, and a little golden, breezy common, with a rural inn on the hilltop, far, far away. And through the thoughts of the past came the sharp sounds of the present, of three voices, one of which was almost silence, it was so hushed. Indifferent people would only have guessed that Mr Donne was speaking by the quietness in which the others listened; but Ruth heard the voice and many of the words, though they conveyed no idea to her mind. She was too much stunned even to feel curious to know to what they related. He spoke; that was her one fact. Presently up came Mary, bounding, exultant. Papa had let her stay up 1/4 of an hour longer, because Mr Hickson had asked. Mr Hickson was so clever, she did not know what to make of Mr Donne. He seemed such a dawdle, but he was very handsome. Had Ruth seen him? Oh no, she could not. It was so dark on those stupid sands. Well, never mind, she would see him to-morrow. She must be well to-morrow. Papa seemed a good deal put out that neither she nor Elizabeth were in the drawing room to-night, and his last words were, "Tell Mrs Denbigh, I hope," and papa's hopes always meant expect. She will be able to make breakfast at 9 o'clock. And then she would see Mr. Dunn. That was all Ruth heard about him. She went with Mary into her bedroom, helped her to undress, and put the candle out. At length she was alone in her own room. At length. But the tension did not give way immediately. She fastened her door, and threw open the window. Cold and threatening as was the night, she tore off her gown. She put her hair back from her heated face. It seemed now as if she could not think, as if thought and emotion had been repressed so sternly that they would not come to relieve her stupefied brain, till all at once, like a flash of lightning, her life, past and present, was revealed to her to its minutest detail. And when she saw her very present now, the strange confusion of agony was too great to be borne, and she cried aloud. Then she was quite dead, and listened as to the sound of galloping armies. If I might see him! If I might see him! If I might just ask him why he left me! If I had vexed him in any way! It was so strange, so cruel! It was not him, it was his mother, said she, almost fiercely, as if answering herself. Oh God! But he might have found me out before this, she continued sadly. He did not care for me as I did for him. He did not care for me at all, she went on wildly and sharply. He did me cruel harm. I can never lift up my face in innocence. They think I have forgotten all, because I do not speak. Oh, darling love, am I talking against you? Asked she tenderly. I am so torn and perplexed. You, who are the father of my child. But that very circumstance, full of such tender meaning in many cases, threw a new light into her mind. It changed her from the woman into the mother, the stern guardian of her child. She was still for a time, thinking. Then she began again, but in a low, deep voice. He left me. He might have been hurried off, but he might have inquired. He might have learned and explained. He left me to bear the burden and the shame, and never cared to learn, as he might have done, of Leonard's birth. He has no love for his child, and I will have no love for him. She raised her voice while uttering this determination, and then, feeling her own weakness, she moaned out, "Alas! alas!" And then she started up. For all this time she had been rocking herself backwards and forwards as she sat on the ground, and began to pace the room with hurried steps. What am I thinking of? Where am I? I who have been praying these years and years to be worthy to be Leonard's mother. My God, what a depth of sin is in my heart! Why, the old time would be as white as snow to what it would be now, if I sought him out, and prayed for the explanation, which would re-establish him in my heart. I who have striven, or made a mock of trying, to learn God's holy will in order to bring up Leonard into the full strength of a Christian. I who have taught his sweet, innocent lips to pray, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." And yet, somehow, I've been longing to give him to his father, who is. She almost choked, till at last she cried sharp out, "Oh, my God, I do believe Leonard's father is a bad man. And yet, oh, pitiful God, I love him. I cannot forget. I cannot." She threw her body half out the window into the cold night air. The wind was rising, and came in great gusts. The rain beat down on her. It did her good. A still, calm night would not have soothed her as this did. The wild, tattered clouds, hurrying past the moon, gave her a foolish kind of pleasure that almost made her smile a vacant smile. The blast-driven rain came on her again, and drenched her hair through and through. The words, "stormy wind fulfilling his word," came into her mind. She sat down on the floor. This time her